Welcome everyone to Founding Females, or welcome back. We are a community, as it sounds, as female founders, though all are welcome. I'm Nicole. I'm the CEO and one of the co-founders here at Vida, a leadership, career, and life coaching company. And Founding Females really is an extension of our business and a passion project of mine, knowing that this shit is hard and there's so much to be learned from the community around us, and to even have that community as we're going through the ups and downs of entrepreneurship. We really wanted to bring folks together and learn from the brilliant minds like Alex, to help us accelerate our businesses and not repeat. Some things we have to repeat the mistakes and learn the hard way, and some things we can catapult by learning from each other. So that's why we started Founding Females, and we're so grateful that you're here with us. Oh, I love it. I love all these in the chat. Thank you. Please shamelessly self-promote. That is what we are all about. We are so lucky to have Alex Batdorf here. I'm going to read your very official bio. Alex is a 3-time veteran entrepreneur and the founder and CEO of Get Sh, the collaborative supporting women entrepreneurs in scaling generational impact. Their motto is "Fuck 4%," a declaration that women-founded companies will no longer settle for 4% of the total business revenues. Amen to that. Get Shit Done supports women founders in giving 4% the middle finger through highly curated community and platform, activating access to the right resources, connections, and collaboration at each stage of their scaling journey. Prior to founding Get Shit Done, she was co-founder and CMO of ZipFit Denim, a multi-million-dollar venture-backed e-commerce company that was acquired in 2019. She's been featured in Forbes, Business Insider, and has spoken around the nation at Harvard, Turner Broadcasting, and others. Now that I've embarrassed you, Alex, welcome.
Oh my God, you can never embarrass me. I'm a Leo, so I'm like, talk about me more. What's going on?
I love that.
You know what, though? I feel like we need to change business bios where it's like one of my good friends, Daniel Vosovic, he's an incredible designer in New York. And he did this amazing photo shoot with like women who influenced his designs. And he was like, had us all write our bios. He was like, but you have to be like in your bad bitch mode. And I was just like, I want my bio to be that all the time. I have to find it, I'll put it in chat. But I'm like,
okay, please do.
Not the like formal, like I did this, I did that. I'm just like, here's why I think I'm amazing. That should be everyone's resume.
I agree. Well, to start, I want to go back a little bit because you've been an entrepreneur multiple times. Clearly, there's some, as I say, sick bone in your body that has drawn you to this insane profession. Yes. What do you think it is? What is it about you that attracted you to this, even as young as I think 19, when you started your first business?
I'm insane. I think part of that, like, it's so funny too when like you're dating and stuff, and like I think maybe when I was in my late 20s, I'm in my 30s now, but like when I think I stopped caring when guys were like, "Oh my God, you're crazy," and I'm like, "Yeah, did I not tell you that?" Like, am I supposed to feel ashamed about that? But I'm like constructive crazy. I feel like the tough thing around that question, and this is something I talk about all the time. I'm trying to get situated, y'all. Just bear with me. But I feel like the tough thing around like why we do what we do, everyone has unique experiences that we're all here to put our light in the world in the way we're designed to, based off of those unique experiences. So, you know, you'll hear these entrepreneur stories of like, I was meant to be an entrepreneur because I had that, you know, lemonade stand at 5 or whatever it is. And that was not my story whatsoever. I was the kid that wanted to do everything. I think one of the biggest privileges you can ever have in your life is who your parents are, and not even just financially. I think the most important thing you can have is parents with the emotional tools to nurture you to be who you're supposed to be in the world. That was one of the best blessings I ever had, a mother that had that, had those tools. I was very much the kid that wanted to do like, hey, I want to do jazz, I want to do tap, I want to do guitar, I want to blah, 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 blah. My mom's like, okay, cool. You know, just throw you in. And it was such a generalist as a kid. I would master something and I'm like, okay, I'm bored with this, I want to do something else. But the amazing thing about those experiences was like, I was so worldly or exposed culturally to so many things. By the time I got to college, when I started my first company, all of those experiences, even the ones you don't think really accumulate to business to make sense, made sense, because I'm like, wow, I could connect the dots on so many things. And a lot of people, when they ask me like, oh, what's your superpower? And I'm like, I mean, I am a super connector, and I'm not even just like a connector of people. I'm a connector of community. I'm a connector of systems. I'm a huge systems thinker. So I'm a visionary that can see how deeply systems work interconnected with each other to make the world go round. So, I mean, I don't know if I answer your question, but like that's one of the tough things around like, how do we get here? What's the thing that made you start so early? I don't think younger entrepreneurs actually, it's statistically proven, younger entrepreneurs are actually shittier at building businesses than
Mhm.
40-year-old plus entrepreneurs. But I do think that everyone here is put in the world to be who they're supposed to be and guide us the way they're supposed to. I think one of the worst sides of humanity, or the disservice, is when we try to put people in boxes to go against what they were here to be. So, I mean, probably not a straightforward answer, but I had the privilege of having a family that basically nurtured me to being all that I'm supposed to be.
Yeah. It's an honest answer, and I appreciate it because I'm similar, and I didn't have the lemonade stand. I don't consider myself a natural salesperson. And I think there's a lot of these perceptions of like, what is the box that an entrepreneur fits in? And I don't feel like I fit in that box for all these different reasons. But I think similarly, my upbringing and the kind of culmination of these different life events help prepare me for this absolutely insane, as you said, career path. And so I love that. And I think that there's something to that. And I'll be curious if you've found that in the women that you've worked with. I don't know a lot about anything, but I know enough to ask the right questions to move it forward. So how you're talking about the interconnectedness of the different pieces, or there's no way to be an expert in every single thing, but to know enough to know what to press on, to how to hold accountability, and how to figure out like that just doesn't make sense. And I'm going to pull on that thread a little bit further, I think is helpful. So as you then started your first business and then went into ZipFit, looking back, and this again is a hard question to answer, so I'm curious your take. What do you think you didn't know that you know now, or that you would have done differently?
I would actually flip that. I think that, they say things like ignorance is bliss. One of my biggest motivators to remind me to keep going. This is my third business, and I mean, there's probably some veterans out there in terms of, you're not new to this, but maybe if you are new to it, no one knows what the fuck they're doing. And you could be doing this for so many years, and like, what you know, but you're always going to be figuring out. And to your point around pulling around threads, I think one of the best characteristics I've seen of good entrepreneurs or business people, or just in general people, is curiosity. Like willing to be able to say, I actually am tired of the word expert. That's why we actually use the terminology and language growth allies in our community, because everyone's a goddamn expert now. It's like we're socially just so ingrained in answers instead of questions. So give me your original question before, because I can go on tangents. I can go on
I don't even remember.
and then people be
What
like,
did you,
oh my God, yes, tell me more. And I'm like, let me get back.
you were, what you would have done differently, or what you don't know?
That's what I was doing. That's where there's somewhere I was going with that.
You were going to get there. I know.
I was going to get there. But the biggest thing though is having that curiosity. When I was 19, when I started my first company. So my first two companies were in the fashion tech space. And the first one failed miserably. I was a 19-year-old CEO who thought hiring her friends was a good idea. Not a good idea. But I learned a lot of things, learned how to recruit some good hires like my CTO and pitch my first investors, all of those things. But the thing I love being 32 now and thinking back to 19-year-old me, she was just so freaking fearless. She didn't have the answer. She didn't know what she didn't know. It was just like, we're gonna figure it out. And I would actually, flip that question, because I think that it's more debilitating with more experience, in my experience at least, that the more experience we have, the more pressure we put on ourselves to perform, because we know what heights we can get to. And so there's constantly that I need to keep going, I need to keep going, I need to get to the next threshold, and the next threshold. And it's like you're literally like this to yourself. Whereas when I was 19, I was so free and like, I don't know. And it just gave me so much more room to experiment and have fun with it. Like, we're like, I don't have the answers here. And there wasn't that unnecessary pressure we put on ourselves. So I would actually say, when I first started out, it was my favorite time to be an entrepreneur, because even though I still did have pressures and things like that to achieve and all that, I just had more fun. And thank God for therapy. Like, I spend so much time like unlearning I have to be the expert, I have to know these things and have it all figured out. It's like, let's just go back to square one, make it simple, and know that you don't know, and let's just be curious enough to figure it out. So I actually look now back at her and say, when I feel like I'm putting too much pressure on myself, I'm like, what would 19-year-old me do right now? And
that is such an interesting. Oh, I think you froze up.
Did I freeze? Am I here?
Is she frozen for everybody?
You're good. We can see you.
Do you see me?
Yeah, Nicole, you're frozen a little bit.
Oh, the retrogrades have switched.
I think Nicole might have dropped off. Oh, Nicole, we hear you. Can you hear us?
I think the internet gods are like, and goddesses are like, we're gonna mess around with Nicole and Alex today.
Hey, Alex, if I can jump in, since
Go for it.
you're Nicole.
Yeah.
What you were saying about your younger self, I find that when I'm trying to make the decision, I think, what would my 80-year-old self tell me? What would my 80-year-old badass self like look back and say, why didn't you just do that? Like, what were you afraid of? So yeah, but I do agree. Your younger self, you're just young and dumb and you don't know. So like, whatever, what's the worst that's gonna happen?
I love that. I actually read something on Sunday that said, look to your inner child and your future self. And I've been thinking about that a lot this week. It's like, what would my inner child really want to do? Because that's when we're the most free, I think. And actually, to your point around your 80-year-old self, I love like all the stars and the moons and the stuff. So like Saturn's return. And so supposedly you have, like, if you're lucky, 4 different Saturns in your life. So from when you're born to 30 to 60, 60 to 90. And then if you're lucky, up. But my favorite thing around each of those transitions, it's like, when you're in your youth, and I look at like my favorite people to talk to are kids, like my nieces and nephews, who have no filter, and they're just like, they see it as it is, very raw, very pure. And then I'm grateful to have grandparents I can still call. And those are my 2 favorite groups to talk to, because they are just like, once you get to like my grandparents' age, they're in their 80s, they're just like, that shit don't matter. It doesn't matter at all. And you realize, like, a lot of the things we freak out about in the grand scheme of things don't matter. They really don't.
I think I'm back. Am I back? That was a curveball.
I think that internet rubbed off on you.
I know what's going on. I totally agree with you. And I say all the time, the most confident I ever was in my business was the day I quit my job to start it. And I've questioned myself every day since. And I think part of that has to do with being so steadfast in your vision, and then reality kind of sinking in. And part of that has to do with where I was in my life. And I had similar reflections. And I think back to 20s me, and I'm like, I knew nothing and thought I knew everything. And now I think about 30s me, and I'm like, I feel like I know nothing, but I probably know something. So how do I tap into that? And I actually was talking to my coach about it this week, and it came out as, I feel like I'm a squishy version of my former self. inside and out. This also, like, I have a 2-year-old and I'm figuring out who I am now as a mom and business owner and all these things. But I was like, I have to figure out how to take those lessons learned, but not lose the joy in it that I had, and how you're talking about, like, you had more fun with it when you're not questioning yourself at every turn.
Absolutely.
So what have you done with it? Like, I guess therapy is a big part of it for you. Obviously coaching's a big part of it for me. How have you channeled that?
You know, there's therapy. I think also my social media fix. I'm not really like, I'm more of a voyeur. Twitter's just so funny. It's just funny. I just laugh. There's no other platform where I just like laugh out loud. Like nothing else. Like Instagram, I'm like, I'm bored. Everyone's faking their life here. And then there's LinkedIn where I'm like, everyone's faking their life professionally. And then I get to Twitter and like the most ratchet, everybody's just being their worst selves. I love it. But you know, they also have some profound things there, threads. And one of those things is that I saw yesterday was around you can't heal in the space that made you sick.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that is, you know, yes, there's therapy. I know a lot of people weaponizing therapy right now. Just be like, I go to therapy and this is what my therapist said, but they're not doing anything with it. It's the same as you know very well as with coaches. It's like your coach can only give you so much, but you have to do the work, right? And part of that is, you know, making sure that you're surrounding yourself with the people that, you know, to the point around like who you want your future self to be. And who do you see along the ride with you? There are very specific people in my life, like my core best friends in this world. I have been best friends with for like 15 plus years, you know, and most of them aren't entrepreneurs. Like the majority of them are in like other fields, and it is so important. I absolutely think you need your founder, your entrepreneur professional communities that can understand. That's, you know, what you're going through, how to do it. That's why Get Shit Done existed. I needed that for myself because I felt very lonely in my last 2 companies. But I would say outside of that, because we have such an accountability crisis in business and we're just recreating the same BS and toxicity where we're not adding value, we're actually just recreating very toxic systems. That requires checks and balances. So like one of my best friends, who is a music therapist for autistic children. She has nothing to do with entrepreneur world. Voice of an angel, perfect pitch. And I will never forget when I started Get Shit Done. I was so used to my last company. We were VC back. We were going really, really fast, very fast all the time. Then with Get Shit Done, it's like, this is going to be a massive company, but I'm the funder now. Like I intentionally did not take capital for this company because I'm like, this is not a 5 to 7 year exit. This is systems change. That takes time. And even though when I left my last company, I had investors saying, you want to check? They had no idea what I was building, but they're betting on the horse, right? And I was like, no, because I know what the weight. My friend Elena Valentine, she's actually based in Chicago. I will never forget. She's one of the few entrepreneurs that I know that raised capital and gave her money back to investors because she was like, I don't want this. And she asked this question of, do you understand what the weight of that money is? Do you know the weight of that money? And I feel like that's the same thing with like a lot of our decisions. Do you know the weight of that decision? So that's super important to me, to be around people that can hold me accountable for taking into consideration the weight of my actions and my decisions. So my best friend Angela, back to that, when we started Get Shit Done, I wanted to go as fast as my last company, but there was a reason I didn't choose that path. But because I was a product of being in that environment where I'm like, I can't choose that, but this is what I'm used to, and I'm validated by that. And so I just remember, because we have to go slower now because we're bootstrapped and I'm the investor. And so I just remember calling her. I'm like, oh my God, Angela, like as a vision, I can see it so clearly, the impact long-term, but it's like, we have to start here. And I was like, but if we don't do this quick enough, we're not able to serve all these women quick enough, what's going to happen? And then I just remember her saying, I'm like, God bless you. She was like, Alex, I love you so much. But she was like, the world's going to go around with or without your company. I was like, this is why I fucks with you. This is accountability. And the problem is all of us, and the intention with, especially in entrepreneurship, is, I call it the John Smith complex, saviorism, that we think we're saving the world. Like anytime now I hear entrepreneurs that use that language, like our company is going to save the world. No, it's not. You've actually created a very toxic outlook and trajectory for yourself, because you're not saving anyone. You can serve people, but the moment we think we're saving anything is a moment we've already shot ourselves in the foot. And that type of accountability is so important. And so when I looked at my previous business, was like, I couldn't heal for what I was designed to now in this chapter of my life, where I needed to make the impact. I couldn't do it based on how I had built before. I had made a lot of mistakes. I did a lot of great things, but I'm like, but that's the reason I started this, and I wanted to change the ecosystem. So I couldn't take the practices that he had done before and apply it to my now environment if I wanted to heal and I wanted to create something so much bigger that I was only uniquely suited to do, but I couldn't use the same tools to make the different outcome. And so when I say you can't be in the same environment that made you sick, I think that's even, and there's nothing wrong with, like, maybe you were in a bad situation before, a job you didn't like. I truly believe all those experiences we needed to get to where we are, but now we have to have the discernment for, how do I move forward to actually make, knowing what I know now, to make the type of impact moving forward. What type of people do I need to be around? What do I need to learn? Who do I need to learn from? And then that's a constant ongoing thing. So I would say that's like the biggest thing for me, is like therapy, but also doing your own work and understanding what made you sick in the first place, where do you need to heal, and then what are the tools you need moving forward and the actions you need to take consistently to keep growing, so you can make the impact you really want to make.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you and I have had multiple conversations about venture funding in particular, and it's something similarly that we've explored multiple times and have decided it's not a treadmill that we want to get in at this point for a number of reasons. But I do think there's a real pressure, and you probably hear the like Amazonification of consumer expectations. And I do think there's a societal pressure, a news pressure, a consumer pressure to operate like a big business when you're trying to build it on a bootstrap budget. And that puts you in a really difficult position as a founder. So I'm curious of your perspective on, of course, there are certain scenarios where venture funding is necessary or appropriate, but like where do you draw that line? What do you encourage people to do? And I guess what are some, I'll stop there and then ask a follow-up question.
So the question is like, what do you do if you're not going down that route? Is that the question?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like it's a very real thing. Like if you don't have a pool of capital that you're just sitting on, what have you seen people do? Yeah, how do you pay your bills?
What most 99.9% of entrepreneurs do that we don't talk about.
Exactly.
It's a very real thing. And here's the thing. I think, and this is curiosity, our culture is so black and white right now. No one can actually have a conversation because everything's like, you're wrong, no, you're wrong, da, da, da. Where I'm like, there's people that are like pro venture, fuck everything else. And then there's people like, fuck venture capital, like, only this side. And I'm just like, we need all of it. We need all of it. I believe in VC if it's the appropriate vehicle that matches the vision of impact and intention for the entrepreneur. If that's there, great. And as long as you're doing it with ethics in mind, so be it. We need optionality. Optionality is massive for me. Optionality is one of my favorite words. But for the rest of us, when you don't have venture capital, first and foremost, to be real about this vehicle, it is glamorized the most. It is talked about the most, but the reality is like, yeah, 2% of women get access to venture capital. But what we don't zoom out and actually contextualize is like, that's 2% of less than 1% that goes to anyone. So the reality is like 99.9% of entrepreneurs will ever get access to that vehicle, but it's just the loudest vehicle. And so for the folks that don't have access to that pool of capital, you are in the majority, yay. So what do we do? There was this really great study I saw like in 2015, and I'm sure that it's pretty comparable today with, outside of things like crowdfunding that has surged since. But they had crowdfunding as the smallest, maybe per year was like 5 billion coming from them. That is exponentially more today because there's many more platforms, whether it's Republic, I Fund Women, and there's different types of crowdfunding, rewards-based, equity-based. And then you have loans from banks. I would say this is probably one of the biggest missed opportunities and something that we're really interested in. Banks have historically been shitty to entrepreneurs, especially underserved entrepreneurs, women, and people of color. That's a really, really amazing opportunity there. They were maybe around 20 billion. That's maybe a little more today. Then you had at the time, VC angel investors had their own pillars. They were pretty neck and neck. I would say probably VC is much higher today. But then there was this huge, huge pillar that was exponentially higher. Like if you saw all these other pillars, they were like here. Then this one pillar that was like all the way up here, where capital comes from. And it was like hundreds of billions of dollars of startup capital comes from the entrepreneur themselves. Savings, 401k, equity on houses. That's another issue when it comes to wealth creation. There's big barriers, especially for people of color. Credit cards. Woo! You know how many credit card stories I hear that from friends, especially the ones that we have on our podcast. Like we've had Nicole. All women who have scaled beyond $1 million. Fun fact, only 1.7% of women have ever scaled beyond $1 million in their businesses. That's why you have them on our podcast. Because I'm like, there could be more of us. Why aren't we talking about this? But a lot of them, we break down how they get, like, where'd your capital come from? And they're like, oh my God, I maxed out every credit card I freaking could, But I'm like, why aren't we talking about this? So then entrepreneurs aren't feeling bad because especially a lot of people, but especially women, were socialized to believe debt's bad. But I'm like, there's good debt. And we think that we get a check from investors. That's not free money. Like that is not free money. That's debt. And that's a huge chunk of your ownership. Because if they're really betting on you, we'd hope you succeed. And that means that they're going to take a good chunk of your company, especially the earlier you raise. That's why you see a lot of these entrepreneurs, like the guys of DoorDash, when they IPO'd, they had like 4% of their company, maybe. And then you'll get people that are like, well, what's 4% of like billions of dollars? And I'm like, that's still the wrong way to look at it because I'm like, their blood, sweat, and tears built this and they walked away with 4%. And it doesn't make, the math doesn't math. And we
and the control and the chance to be ousted from your own company at any turn of the market. Yeah, we see it happen all the time.
And that's their decision. And there's nothing wrong if that is the route for you. So there are plenty of vehicles. I think the tough thing for entrepreneurs is because we are consuming so much information that does not talk about what those other vehicles are. I'm in a unique position to know because that's part of my job for our community is to know what the other vehicles are. But if you don't, like if you're the one that is saying, I'm funding this, because the first thing I'll hear entrepreneurs saying to kind of backtrack for even why we started Get Shit Done. We spent, I just remember while I was scaling my last company, we were in the top % clubs. It was top % of women who have scaled beyond $1 million and raised money and all these other things. And then I'm hearing these narratives around women entrepreneurship. And on one end, it was saying, wow, look at all these women starting companies, especially women of color, especially Black women. But I would be in these rooms with quote unquote successful entrepreneurs. And I'm like, I am one of the only women and I am damn sure the only Black person here. So where are all these women? And then on the other side of this entrepreneur narrative for women, it was like, well, it sucks for us because we don't have investors. And like I mentioned, it's like, well, institutional investors, there's a very small percentage that will ever happen for. So what's really the problem here? So we spent thousands of hours with hundreds of women. And what we found was 9 out of 10 times when women were saying, I need capital, what they really meant was, I need revenues. And that's validated by data. They're saying, I need more customers. I need more money coming in, validated by data. So I Get Shit Done, which Nicole actually said, one of our mottos is fuck 4%. We say that because women own nearly half of businesses, actually 49%, half of businesses in the US. We generate 4% of total revenues. But do we talk about that? No, we don't. We talk about capital.
I didn't even know that before Get Shit Done.
Yeah, we talk about capital. And essentially what we keep doing is recreating toxic systems that create a dependency on them for us to succeed, versus saying, how do we give you the tools to hunt and fish? Like fish, hunt, kill, get the thing. So yeah, I don't even know how I got there, but here we are.
Here we are. Well, I'm also going to go an aside, which is I want to talk about your branding, which is very powerful and in your face. You've got swear words in it. So I talk about like, immediately I trusted you. That's the Philly in me. Like, if you're comfortable to drop an F-bomb in our first interaction, like, I know we're going to be friends. I think you have a confidence about you that probably comes from this experience, probably is the innate person that you are and what you bring to the world. And I think a lot of us as business owners, I've done it where I've watered down my message or I've watered down my brand to try and appeal. Was that a conversation, or how has that felt of like, we know this isn't going to resonate with everybody and I'm still going to put the middle finger on my brand because I have something to say?
Yeah, great question. So I'll start with like going back to the original question around like why are you crazy enough to do this? And again, this is lived experiences are really important. All of us are uniquely designed. I was always a very like out there kid, very much a performer. I was like a theater kid in high school and college. I was prepared to literally be on stages, like not even, and I think back to that, I did it because I'm like, I just need an outlet for all this energy and to be extra. Like, that's really what I needed to do. But it prepared me to come across as confident. Because I think the really interesting thing is I have so many fucking insecurities. Oh my God. Again, thank you for therapy. Thank you for friends that I can heal with. Talk about it all the time. It's just embracing them and your wholeness. So the confidence piece, I think for me, comes from own unique lived experiences. Each of us has certain personalities, DNA, whatever it is, that shapes us into who we are. But there's ways we can get to our confidence. And I think the way each of us can get to confidence, it's not about being extra or being loud and extroverted. Some of the most confident people I know are very quiet too. There's a combination. There's not one or the other. Like there's this guy I'm dating right now and he's such a great listener. He's, not like super quiet, but he's just like, okay. So confident. He doesn't have to be the last. We could not
need to fill the space. Yeah.
Right. He couldn't be the loudest person in the room because I'm just like, this would just not work. Get out of the way. Like, excuse you. Like, so, I mean, it's not about what it looks like on the outside and being all these things. It's really about like internally, how do you feel? And a lot of that is accepting all that you are, the good, bad, and ugly. It's like, I've accepted the fact that yes, I'm really good at talking to people. I'm really good at connecting with people and relationships and things like that and creating community. But other things I'm awful at. I am moody as fuck. I'm moody at 4:00. Like, I don't want anyone to speak to me. I am impatient. My team calls me a tornado. Like, I'm precise, but I can hurt a little bit and I got to work on that really hard. But I had to embrace those things about myself so I knew how to move forward. So that's to the confidence piece, is like anyone can be confident. You had a second part of that question. What was the second?
Yeah, just like your branding, like when you're putting something out into the world, I think there's a natural temptation. And I was actually just talking to someone who was saying they felt the biggest reason that women in particular don't start their businesses is not even for any of the like logistical stuff that we've talking about, but the fear around what people are going to think and that people tell them it's a bad idea and all these kinds of external hurdles. And so I think you're constantly going, well, what if I put that out there and someone, whatever, doesn't react well to it? Or like, to have the confidence to say, this is what I stand for. This is what I'm going to do, even knowing that may not speak to everybody.
Yes. So let me say it back so I stay on track. So the first thing is, you know, being very clear on who you are and also just doing it, right? So going back to like the 19-year-old me, and why I said I wanted to flip that is because the 19-year-old me was just like, okay, we're just gonna do it. Just do it. And I think that's one of the biggest things when we see with younger people is like they don't know what they don't know, so they'll take that leap. And so as we get older and we have more experiences under our belt, the biggest thing is like, as corny as it might be, like Nike got it right, just do it. Like one of the things that I liken it to is have you done trapeze before?
No.
So I did trapeze for a birthday a few years ago. And it's scary as shit. At least if you're not like a huge heights person. Like I'm not afraid of heights that much, but it's like it's kind of scary. You have to go up.
Perfect example. I didn't used to be. I've bungee jumped out of a plane. Would I do it now? Hell no. But maybe trapeze is something else to take on. So continue.
Yes. So, and I just wrote down branding. We're in the middle of 2 launches, so my brain is all over the place. Anyways, so with trapeze, and this goes to like just doing it, is I did it for this birthday because when you go, you have to climb up this really tall ladder to get really, really high up. And once you're up there, there's someone behind you putting you in a harness. Can't see me, harness. And then they're saying, okay, you have to put your feet over this ledge before you jump. Mind you, half of your, like the back of your foot is on it. The front of your toes are off of it. It's so scary. It's like your legs, like my knees are like buckling. And then you have to wait for them to give you the cue to jump. And then before you jump, you have to do this, like bend your knees. They're like, huh, and then you jump. And you're preparing yourself for this jump. The scariest thing is in preparation for the jump. That's the scariest thing. You are shaking. You are literally like, oh my God, what's about to happen? What's about to happen? And then you finally make the jump. And then you're like, oh, this is dope. This is amazing. Amazing. And then you're just in the air and you're like, wow, it's cool out here. It's pretty cool out here. It's like right before that jump. And I did it multiple times. And I remember coming down after maybe my 3rd jump. And my friends were there taking pictures and stuff. And I just started crying. Because I was like, this is a metaphor for like how I feel every day in my business. Like every single day where I'm like, you know, that confidence just to take the jump. But to branding around like, it is a part of confidence. You have to be so sure of who you are and what you stand for in the world. And to be clear, even if your business, because Get Shit Done is an entity outside of myself. I'm just like the evangelist for it, the ambassador for it, but it's meant to supersede me. It's meant to go way beyond. But in order to get there, I had to leverage who I am and what my values are to be there. And I knew very clearly what I wasn't and who I was. And even I don't know what gave me the discernment at like 19, maybe I think it was family. Like I have a very unique experience of, again, your context in your reality is everything. Like I am a biracial Black woman. My mom's Black, my dad was white. So one of my biggest things was having a man who's in society is perceived as being at the top, telling me every day how amazing and beautiful and important I was. And not saying it's not important coming from my mother, but in the world, people are telling me, well, this person's opinion's more important or whatever it is. And as an adult, I'm like, that's not fucking true, right? So my sense of, yeah, I deserve to be here. What do you mean? You know, see, like context matters. Like that's why I'm like, I don't like giving blanketed advice. So in branding, the best thing you can absolutely do is say, here's what I am, here's what we're not, here's what we stand for. We're not bending on that, and we're not here for everybody. So example, when I was launching or pitching in my last company, or my first company actually, I was 19-year-old, had big curly afro, even bigger than this, wore ripped jeans because I'm like, these white guys can go in there and do whatever they want. I'm gonna go and do whatever I want. And I had to be clear on what I wouldn't do. Was like, I wasn't going to change the way I speak. So the way I'm speaking to y'all right now, that's how I speak in every environment. Like I will meet people in real life and they're like, oh my God, you're like this in real life. Because there's people that are like internet personalities. And then you meet them in real time and you're like, you're actually not that way. Like, wait, who are you, you know? So I think being very clear, like I was very clear on, I'm not going to do this. I think being clear on like who you are, but also what you're not is just as important. What we were not was the like space where, and no shade, but like there's spaces where it's like girl power and we're all going to do this together and let's hold hands. And I'm like, that is great for certain places and certain people. God bless. I think there has to absolutely be a space for that. But I'm like, that is not what the fuck we're about at Get Shit Done. When we're at Get Shit Done, the way we say go girl is just like accountability. Like, tell me your numbers right now. What's going on? What's working? What's not? You said you were going to do that. Why didn't that happen? I love you enough to challenge you because you want this for yourself. I want it for you. So why didn't it happen? And so like, that's why one of our values, and if you go to our website, you see all of our values and you can probably tell like awesome. The way that I speak right now, I encompass all of those values. Like we say, be kind, not nice. I'm very kind. I think of it as my grandfather, who's a tattoo on my neck. You can't see it. He was the grumpiest motherfucker you would ever meet. Kindest human being. Would give you the shirt off of his back. But he was grumpy. He was just like, this is who I am. But like, he'd just like, no. Okay, what do you need? What do you need? Tell me more. Okay, let's figure it out, you know? Versus there's so many there's a lot of niceness happening, especially in corporate or whatever spaces. Oh my God, I'm rooting for you. I love you. And there's no follow-up. And then instead people are like behind closed doors, they're like, So long-winded way of saying like, it is just as important when it comes to branding to be very clear about what you're about. But where I see people failing at branding is not being clear on what they're not, because we try to build things and say, we're for everybody. No, it's not. You're not air. You're not water. You're not for everybody. Like, and the moment you think your company is for everybody, and the moment you think you are for everybody, you have done yourself a disservice and you've already failed.
Yeah, you're for nobody. If you're for everybody, you're for nobody. And so you have to get clear on that. And I love that. And the irony of the chat right now, I think is stunning.
I love it. Turn it up for everyone. I don't know who's all here.
Yes. Thank you, Samantha. There was a swear word in the title of this event. If that's uncomfortable, then this isn't the training for you. So we'll continue on. I know we want to get to questions from the group. I have like 1,000 more, and you really just got me thinking about this whole trapeze and skydiving and
do it, Nicole.
Bungee jumping analogy. And what I was thinking about it though was people ask about it, and I'm like, bungee jumping was so much scarier for me than skydiving. And I was trying to think of why. Like, I'm literally tethered to something versus jumping out of a plane. But when you go skydiving, there's like a video, there's an outfit, there's a lead up. Like, you feel like you've got all this stuff around you, that this is a legitimate like establishment. And when you bungee jump, they like wrapped a towel around my ankles and were like, jump. And I was like, whoa, where's the video? And I think I see this same thing with people in business where they're like, well, when do I get my video tutorial and my outfit? Like, how do I just start my business? And you just don't. You just jump and you start doing stuff, and it feels real and you feel real over time. And that comes through action. So I think
recognition. That is such a good point. I was literally before this call, or before my internet went out, I was talking to my soul friend. I call her, she's higher than a best friend. We were just talking about, you know, one of the downfalls, because she's a jewelry designer, entrepreneur, and one of the downfalls, especially in our world where we have the Instagrams and everything, you see everything all the time, and you know, we start building off of recognition and validation versus why do I even care about this? Why do I even care? And not saying you can be on these platforms and be very clear on it, but I would say it's so easy to get warped and wrapped into the external validation, because we're all products of our environment. We're just trying to not drown in the stuff that we're consuming.
Totally. Oh, we have a birthday party going on here. There's a lot of floating balloons. We knew one would be a casualty at some point, so we just experienced it.
I love everyone.
We're going to start thinking about your questions. Feel free to start dropping them in the chat. I want to tell you a little bit more about Vida before we do, and coaching if you haven't experienced it yet for yourself. So as I mentioned, we're a leadership and career and life coaching company. We're based here in Chicago, but have incredible coaches all throughout the country. We work both within organizations and teams, and also with individuals. And I could go on and on about all the services that we offer, which are incredible, but I feel like it's helpful and Alex, exactly why I like your podcast. It's so tangible. Like we can talk in theory, but I want to tell you what exactly it looks like. So I just figured I'd share with you my session. I work with Coach Betsy. We had a session on Monday. This is where I told her I was squishy in all parts of my body and soul at the moment. And what we did was really kind of figure out how to articulate that. And what we kind of came to is over the past 2 years since becoming a mom and trying to figure it out, I've gained so much beauty and fulfillment in my life and feel like I've lost a bit of my power and myself. And I've been doing all this stuff in my business for other people because you open your laptop in the morning, there's 20 things you have to deal with. And I lost sight of the things that brought me that internal validation. So one of my challenges was to start writing again, which I love to do. And a handful of other things to really bring some of that power back. And so I feel you'll see blog posts and I'll hope that you'll all read it when it comes out, like the very tangible output of this, and already feeling like I'm a little bit closer to that, not necessarily clinging to that 20-year-old person, but like the next evolution of her. And so that's really what coaching is about, is like, where are you? Some days it's really tactical. I have to have this difficult conversation. Some days it's, I'm squishy. We got to figure this out today because it's interrupting everything else in my life. So if you haven't worked with a coach, I highly encourage you to consider it. Jillian, do you mind dropping in the link to book a consultation? Our team is incredible. They will spend 30 minutes plus getting to know you, really understanding your personality and pairing you with the right Betsy for you, and what your goals are. So that's completely free. If that sounds interesting and helpful, please, I encourage you to consider it. Okay, I think we have some questions coming in. One from Kelly. Any thoughts on how your relationship with money has evolved over the years? I'm starting my business right now with only my own savings as capital. Don't have a paycheck, dependent on my spouse for money, and struggle with feeling like a failure because of that.
Great question. Wow, I think, this all comes back to like money narratives, which is through money trauma and our lived experiences, right? To give context, I came from a very type A mom who was always ready, like saving for a rainy day. And so much of my money narrative was around scarcity. And one of the biggest problems we see even in women entrepreneurship. So I'm a big sociology nerd. So I spend so much time reading sociology papers on economics of entrepreneurship, especially in regard to women and people of color. And one of the biggest things that they see, the differences between how men and women start businesses, is the difference of risk aversion. So men are more willing to take risk financially than women, whereas women are like, I can only save this much. And it's a catch, right? Because there's certain characteristics you need to have at parts of the business. So where men take the risk early on, that actually, as the company grows, can be a disservice. Because if you keep being really risky and you keep just kind of throwing things at the wind, you can put your company in jeopardy. And it's actually proven that women's companies, when they succeed, perform 30% higher on profits than men's businesses. But that's when they're actually moving and grooving, right? So there's something we can each learn from each other, is that on one end, men can really learn from women as they're growing their businesses, how to be detailed and nurture that capital and where to put it, because we are literally the nurturers of commerce. 80% of purchase decisions come from us. However, I would say one of the biggest things that we can learn from our male counterparts is that knowing when to take risk, especially in the beginning when there's so many unknowns. Like, you cannot plan for really anything. So it's saying, I'm going to take this bet and I'm going to, come up with scenarios. One of my good friends, Christina Blacken, she's the founder of Quo. She actually talks about this, where she does a lot of scenario planning. She's like, here's my best case, worst case, medium case scenarios, and what would I do in each scenario? And that's all you could really do. That's all you could really do, is saying, here's the options, but knowing that I don't know until it happens. And if I need that plan, then I know here's what I can do next. But you have to take the risk, especially early on. There's just no way to like safeguard you. You're going to get, I think on Nicole's post, when she was promoting this, she was saying, you know, we've gotten to being broke a couple of times building this. You know how many times? Oh my God. The amount of times I'm like, am I going to make payroll this month? I mean, not now, but like, woo, it's tough, especially when it's not you anymore. Man, that's a whole thing. So I get it. I get it. But the biggest thing is like, you got to take the risk, have some cushion in there. I don't believe in the people that just do it. And it's just like, you're living out on your mom's couch. Like, what are you talking about? You don't have responsibilities right now. So like, don't tell someone to go do it when you don't even know what doing it looks like. So I get wanting to have cushion, but like, don't wait until you're ready. Like, just you got to go after it. Give yourself some runway, but then just go after it.
It's hard. It's so hard. I was in the exact situation, and it took a long time. It's a great fuel, that's for sure, because you're like, I'm gonna find a way to make that money as soon as I can. But it's a tough spot. But I also think for me, back to that like steadfast mentality, like I knew I was doing this to build a big successful company. I wasn't doing this because I wanted to be a charity case for anybody. Yep. And so I think it's the same way you would invest in anything. You're investing in your business right now, and your time will come.
Yeah. And being clear on what type of business too. Like, I don't like when people are like, be $1 million, billion. If you don't want that, if you want like lifestyle and you're like, I just want to be comfortable and do X, Y, and Z, do that. Please don't try to scale anything. Like, you just won't be happy. That's not your intention. So being very clear, I think that's a good point, Nicole. Being clear on what your intention is for the business is so key. So then you can build according to that vision of impact.
Mm-hmm. I think we have time for one last question from Natasha. What's your stretch goal? What are you going to do next in business that scares the shit out of you?
Ooh, stretch goal. I mean, we actually did it this week. This is why I'm like crazy all over the place right now. So we're in the 10th cohort of our accelerator program. That's what we launched with. And then we just launched our paid membership community. We had like hundreds of women around the world that were like, we want to be a part of this community. And maybe like 2 years ago, I was like, where is the community? Where are they at? Where are we all gathering? And then my team was like, I think we should create a space. So we've been intentionally for over a year now, really building with our current community on what that looks like. And again, what Get Shit Done is and is not in the entrepreneurial space as a community, and what we stand for is so important. So the stretch goal for us is really just growing our members. And right now we launched with our founding members, and then next year we're going to open it up to more women, because we want to be really intentional about how we're growing the community. We don't really care about how many people are in our community. We care about the quality of their outcomes. So I'm happy to put our wait list in the chat if you all are interested in learning more about, us and our tribe. But that's the stretch goal, is just serving more women entrepreneurs. I think what makes me the most excited is the fact that we did an analysis, and the founders who go through our community and programs perform 54% higher on revenues than their counterparts, which is the most exciting. So what excites me and scares the shit out of me, and when it scares you and excites you, you're doing the right thing, is validating or invalidating our thesis, like how we do it is the right way or is one of the ways to do it. And we're going to help more women do that. So that's the stretch goal. Growing our members and helping them get those outcomes.
We'll make sure that this is included in the follow-up. Where can we find you, follow you? We know not Instagram. If you wouldn't mind sharing do you want to say anything out loud, like where we can follow along with Get Shit Done, or is it following this link?
I mean, I would say here, I'll put the wait list there. And then I would say our website as well. You can join. We send out as well our weekly traction briefing. So where we break down key traction topics on how to grow your business. Vida was a case study. These are all women who have scaled beyond $1 million in their businesses. And then our team does a fabulous job of just getting you really amazing resources. So it's like a 5-minute, case study every week on how to grow and in certain areas. And you're learning from specifically other women who have done it. So yes, I would say those 2 ways are the best way to get involved with us.
Yeah. And check out the podcast. It's really amazing and such a different spirit than I think a lot. I love inspiration. Like I follow a ton of that too, but also like we need the numbers, people, and we need the how-tos. And so it's really helpful. Alex has a way of getting through the fluff and asking the questions that get the answers. So please check out the podcast as well. Yeah. Thank you so much for your time. You talked earlier that you can talk to anybody, and that's part of your gift. And I think part of what is so unique about the way that you do that is how you make other people feel. And you're the type of person who instantly, I felt warm, I felt connected, I felt like I care and I want to stay involved in this person's life. So thank you for being here. Thank you for all you're doing to say fuck 4%, help the women on this call. We really appreciate you and value you. So thank you.
I appreciate all of you. And mind you, I'm also not for people that don't like curse words like we saw earlier. And I honor that. See, you want to be clear on who you're here for and who you're not here for. You don't want anyone to be indifferent on you. So I'm happy I got to share space for the people that it resonated with. And for those that it didn't, now you know what you like and you don't. I like all of it. I like all of it.
I love it. Thanks, everybody. Have a good one.
Bye.